Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good. All right. So my name is Mike Vaccarino. I lead the business team at Clarify. Clarify is a artificial intelligence company that specializes in visual recognition, similar to the presentation that we just heard. We're headquartered in New York with offices in San Francisco. And we're very honored to be here. So thanks to the IPTC for inviting us and to CPIC for hosting an amazing conference. But for the next 15 minutes or so, we're going to be talking about the state of computer vision and the way that it's truly been transforming stock photo businesses. So some unsurprising statistics. We're going through a visual explosion of digital content. Brands and marketers have identified visual content as being one of the most important assets that they can have to communicate a story, to communicate a lifestyle, to sell products, frankly. But the problem is that they share a lack of resources in creating that content, and that's where the people in this room come in and are able to assist these companies achieve their goals. But as we know, it's not sufficient just to have a massive library of content. That content needs to be organized, needs to be sorted, it needs to be able to be found in order to support the businesses that create it. With today's digital attention span of a few milliseconds, if you can't find what you're looking for, you're probably going to drop off from that site. And so the way that Clarify solves this is with, of course, artificial intelligence. And we use very similar technology to what Professor Kai and Adrian were talking about, in that we use convolutional neural networks to take massive volumes of data and to train machines to understand the contents of images. And so Clarify generally thinks about the contents of images within three categories: objects, context, and emotions as well. But this process is very time intensive, frankly takes decades of research, lots and lots of data, and for businesses who have 5 or 10 people working on an IT team, it's not realistic to create an entire artificial intelligence platform and train it. And so what Clarify does is simplify that process into a very simple, or very easy to use API. And someone who's done that masterfully is one of our clients, FOP, where the dynamic or the paradigm is that a user uploads a photo. That photo is then sent through the Clarify API. It's scanned for the various outputs that may exist within that photo. And within 200 milliseconds, a blink of an eye, you have a structured JSON response. And FOP specifically allows their users to confirm or deny those tags before it's added to the marketplace. Now, it's easy to use, but what it's done for the business, along with FOP, we work with 500 pixels, Pond 5, and the resounding response is that this allows those photos to become found. It improves discoverability. And with discoverability comes revenue and conversion. But it also eliminates friction. It eliminates a lot of the time that people have to spend manually entering in keywords onto the photo. And it allows you to monetize your long tail. So your most unpopular photos that don't have really robust metadata strategies in the past, they now do, and can be found and can be discovered and can be taken care of. But up until this point, what we've largely talked about is a general high-level understanding of any given photo. And frankly, in the last year, the technology has progressed to a point where you can get a much deeper contextual understanding of a photo, some of which Adrian talked about earlier. So if we take this photo right here and we pass it through Clarify's general model, you're going to get generic terms, right? Athlete, competition, sports. But that doesn't really tell you what the photo is about, nor would really anyone find this photo using just those terms. So what we've developed in response to that request is similar to Adrian's presentation, a demographic understanding of the photo. So detect the person's face and tell me their age, gender, ethnicity. And for brands who want to espouse a millennial-focused messaging, you now have a library. You're now able to search across your library for those millennials that can possibly help communicate a brand value, or those Gen Xers, those Gen Zers. But even with this information, we're still a little bit lacking in what this photo actually is. And in response to that, we've taken a more narrow approach to define who this person is and what brands they're associated with. So not only can we tell you what the age, gender, ethnicity of the person is, but we can say this is in fact Cristiano Ronaldo. And that's what you might search for when you're searching for this person. And not only is it Cristiano Ronaldo, but he's wearing an Adidas jersey with a Real Madrid logo present on the search. And Clarify currently recognizes over 500 brands, your most prominent brands, and I think over about 15,000 celebrities at the moment. So you're able to really scan a very large library of content and get very, very specific tags, as well as a high-level understanding of the photo as well. All right. But as we know, the stock photo industry does shift with society's changes, and so I did a quick search for the emerging trends in stock photo in 2017. Some of these terms I don't think are surprising, right? VR, drones, those are new emerging photos that are being used pretty regularly. The one that surprised me, and I thought that was the most interesting, was this resurgence of the 90s. I have a feeling it's probably brands and marketers targeting millennial groups using the likes of Will Smith and the Spice Girls and the heyday of Nickelodeon cartoons. But if you go to the most prominent stock photo agencies who I know for a fact use machine learning, and you type in the 90s, you're going to get results that are similar to this. And it's not wrong, right? These are correct tags for these photos, but it doesn't espouse that 90s aesthetic that you're actually looking for. And you're probably going to drop off. So in response to this market inefficiency, Clarify has developed a tool called custom training that allows you as the user to teach the AI what you're looking for in a photo. And it generally works like this, and I will show a demo pretty quickly, but just by taking a small subset of your photos and tagging them manually, you can actually teach Clarify what you're looking for in a photo. And what this does, it allows you to get ahead of the buying curve. So as a new trend emerges, as fidget spinners emerge, you can actually teach Clarify your idea of a fidget spinner and then scan across an entire library for that very same photo. So we're going to go live. Of course, things can sometimes break. But I'm going to switch over to this user interface. So this is a Clarify user interface. It's the custom training module. And what I've done is uploaded about 45 photos. And I've separated them into 3 different categories. So you have about 15 photos of virtual reality, about 15 photos of drones, and about 15 photos that I thought subjectively represented this idea of the 90s. And the difference between the 90s and drones and virtual reality is that in drones and virtual reality, this concept is defined. There's a subject of the photo. It can only go so far left or right in terms of what's in that photo. But with the 90s, it's subjective to the photo editor or the company or the brand who's defining that aesthetic. And what I've done is gone in here and tagged each one of these photos with either the 90s drones or virtual reality. And tagging it is as simple as clicking this little checkbox right here and then training the model, which takes a few seconds. You can tell that I've tagged it with this little green X. So what this allows you to do, just to reiterate, is now take this trained model, apply it to a vast quantity of millions and millions of images, and find other images that represent this aesthetic. So we're going to do a small scale test here, and I've taken 6 photos that this model has never seen before, and we're just going to drag and drop to upload them. Once they're uploaded, do a quick refresh. And in that blink of an eye, Clarify analyzed these photos and tried to sort them into one of the 3 categories. And so when I open up this first photo, we'll see with a 96% accuracy, this photo now represents, in Clarify's mind, this idea of the 90s. And if we flip through, we see virtual reality, a nice Amazon drone, another drone, and virtual reality as well. Sorry, in the 90s as well. Kind of virtual reality. So that's custom training. You can teach, clarify the terms and the taxonomies that are important to you. And what we see this being used for most regularly is standardizing taxonomy. So as Alfonso talked about earlier, some people may think of this, a city skyline, as a city skyline or a city or urban. What this allows you to do is say, no, we only want this to be called city every single time, and we're going to use these 15 or 100 or 1,000 photos to teach, clarify. All right. Now, as I was scrolling through this, we've talked about this briefly this morning. Clarify also offers a similar image API endpoint. And what this allows people to do is take a photo, really irregardless of the metadata associated with it, and use it as a search term. So just by clicking the button, within 200 milliseconds, we return a rank-ordered list of other photos that are most visually similar. And if we do this again on someone in virtual reality, the same result. But I think what's interesting about this tool specifically is how it's being applied on the web. And a great example of that is our partner Architizer, who's a architectural blog. They deal with the design. They focus on providing inspiration for their readers. And so what they've done is featured this visual search capacity on every single one of the photos across the entire website. And although it allows people to find related content, what they've really said is that in their somewhat slow-moving industry, it's positioned them as an innovator, and it's being used as a big differentiator in their ability to attract new audiences and also retain them. And they've also seen quite a bit of increasing engagement and usage and clicking around because people aren't beholden to simply typing in text. They can now use an aesthetic or a piece of imagery that they like to find other photos. All right, so we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to leave you with a few thoughts. Like I said earlier, we're honored to be here. We're among some of the best AI companies globally. And whether you go with Clarify or someone else, I think some questions that are important to ask yourselves as business owners and business people is, what does the AI actually recognize? If it doesn't recognize exactly what we want, can we teach it? With the emergence of video and 360 and VR, do these APIs support those file types? And then, when there's a problem, or if there's a problem, hopefully not, at 3 a.m., who can you call? Who can you have a real partnership with? Who can you get on the phone with and talk about AI with and learn a little bit from? So with that, I'm going to wrap it up, and thank you. Very pleasant.